Before you submit your OPERS retirement application online, there are a few things you'll want to understand. In this video, I'll walk through the application screens so you can see what the process looks like and where people often get hung up or confused. Hi, I'm Todd Gurno, founder of Three Creeks Capital. I previously worked at STRS Ohio and was a member of OPERS for 7 years. Our firm specializes in retirement planning for Ohio public employees. Let's go ahead and get started. So as you can see here, this is the OPERS online application. On this first screen, top left, you see this is nothing more than personal information. So what you're going to want to do here on this screen is just ensure that OPERS has the most up-to-date information. The biggest hiccup I see on this screen is either email or your mobile number. Most of the other things tend to be up-to-date at this point. The other is your marital status, whether or not you are married or if you are single. So you'll go ahead in this basic section here, personal information, go ahead and complete that. So let's go ahead and move on. The next question you will be asked is whether or not you plan on becoming reemployed. So think about some of you that decide to become reemployed, and this section is where you would complete, are you reemployed with an employer other than your current employer, yes or no? Most of the time this is a no. Let's move on to the next screen. Here, this is your service credit details, and you can see for this particular estimate that I created, I just put in a few years here. But ultimately, most of you will have somewhere around 30 years, 32, whatever it is that you're going for. So here you just want to make sure that your total service credit looks good and then any projected service credit. So think of that being, hey, 2 years from now, I plan on retiring, or I have service credit with another pension system, something like that. So think of projected and current being a little bit different. So in this case, current service credit, no projected, I just want to retire with my 6.7 years. Okay, great. Next area on this screen, you can see, are you in the process of purchasing service credit? That should be pretty obvious to you. If you are, check yes. If you're not, check no. The other piece down here towards the bottom of the screen you'll see is, are you a member of another Ohio pension system? So you're applying for your OPERS retirement, but what OPERS wants to know is, hey, do you have credit over at STRS? Do you have credit at OPNF or SCRS? Do you have credit somewhere else other than us that either maybe we combine for your full pension or we need to take into consideration when you're applying here? So in that section, you would just check one of those boxes if you're a member of one of those other systems. Let's move on. Retirement payment. This is really important. People think of the day they stop as their retirement date. That may be your retirement date with your employer, but from a pension standpoint, what you want to remember is your retirement date, it is always the first day of the month following your last day of paid service. So in that example, I stopped working June 15th. My retirement date's going to be July 1st. And that's what you're really seeing here at the top of the screen. So at the bottom here, what you want to do is make sure you're picking, hey, I'm going to go ahead and retire August 1 of 2026. Great. So pick that first eligibility time frame. Now, this is where I find, if you've watched any of my other videos, a lot of people get this part wrong. And that is, who should I leave my benefit to? So in this example, we can see there were 3 potential beneficiaries here. And let's assume for you, you only want to pick one, which makes sense in what most people do. So you would just choose beneficiary designation here on the left, choose that person. Let's say in your example, it's a spouse. Okay, I want to leave my spouse a monthly benefit. Okay, great. And then you can see here, you would just have to complete their information if they don't already have it. So in this case, you can see the pop-up, right? It's a child. Here's all the basic information. Not a problem. Hit save and continue. And then from there, when you do, what's going to happen is you're going to get a pop-up. And it's going to basically say, what plan of payment would you like to leave this person that you've selected as your beneficiary? This is the number one mistake that people make. So watch one of my other videos on this so you make sure before you submit this application you get this part right. So here you're picking single life, joint life, meaning you want to cover yourself for a lifetime benefit as well as someone else, or a multiple life. Hey, I want to cover all three of those beneficiaries on my previous screen. What's really important here to know is that whatever you decide is irrevocable. So you don't get to come back to OPERS a year after you've retired and say, hey, by the way, I want to go ahead and pick a different plan of payment. Nope, you get a one-time shot at this, so you need to get it right. Now, when you choose one of these plans, let's say in my example, I chose a single life plan, you can see my monthly benefit would be about $135. Okay, most of you will choose your benefit option and then see your monthly benefit much, much greater than that. Okay, here's what you have to understand though. When you're on this section, you've already run estimates inside of OPERS in the past, and then you're looking at this number and you're thinking, wow, that doesn't exactly match the estimates that I just ran. That is true, okay? So don't panic here. As you're filling out your application, there's always a little disclaimer here at OPERS that basically says, hey, by the way, the number you're seeing right here may not be the exact number. Okay, keep moving as long as you know exactly how much you're going to leave that person. The part that I would point out here under joint life plan, if you look, it says somewhere between 10 and 100%. Most people don't realize that they can leave their primary beneficiary something in between 10 and 100. For our clients, we pick exactly what that percentage should be. So there's been times where I've left a spouse 42% or 35%, whatever the number needs to be based on how we calculate that. Now, in this example, just make sure that whatever you're choosing here, you complete the correct percentage if you're doing a joint life plan. Now, again, you have the option, which everybody wants to at least consider, the PLOP, the partial lump sum option plan. Here is where you're going to tell us whether or not you want to take a PLOP. And if I checked yes here, there would be a couple numbers that come up. The minimum is 6 times your single life annuity amount, or 36 times, which is the maximum, your single life annuity amount, or somewhere in between. So you can backfill a number here. So if I click yes here, then what's going to happen is the screen's going to open up, and I'm going to go ahead and input, hey, I want to take a $150,000 PLOP. What else is going to happen in the following screens is, where do you want that PLOP sent? Keep in mind that your PLOP is a pre-tax contribution, meaning that if you were just to take it as cash, you will pay income tax on that. Whereas if you were to roll it, let's say, into your traditional IRA, you could avoid taxation at that point and then pay tax when you withdraw it from the IRA at some point. So just keep in mind, when you decide to take a PLOP, make sure you watch some of my other videos to make sure you understand the tax implication here. So go ahead and hit save and continue. Then it's going to ask you for some banking information. This is where you want your monthly deposit sent each and every month. So in this case, your routing number, bank account number, as well as you're going to confirm that and then hit save. You do have the option of putting that right into savings. Most people do it into checking. But just keep in mind, you will need that information when filling out the application. This is one of those things that hangs everybody up, okay? I have a lot of clients that come in here, they retire from OPERS, and they want to sit down and do the application with me because you've been doing this a long time, you're nervous, you want to make sure you don't make a mistake. And this is the big area here, is that when you click Add Tax Withholding, what's going to happen is that W-4 form is going to come up which is really super confusing, right? A new one. And so you're going to put in there, hey, I'm married filing jointly. I have all these other incomes, or my spouse has other incomes, or whatever it may be, and then it'll calculate the tax for you, which we'll address that issue here in a minute. So on this screen, you're just really inputting that data, okay? You'll hit Save and Continue, and then you'll see here, do you want federal tax withheld? Yes. Okay, well, tell us how much. And when you click yes, that's when you can either use the calculator or you put in the dollar amount that you want, which tends to work for most people, okay? Now, in your state withholding, you can either don't withhold state or withhold state. As you know, here in the state of Ohio, if you're living here in retirement, you have both federal and state tax withheld from your OPERS pension. If you live in a state in which they don't withhold state income tax on their residents, then you don't need to have any income tax withheld if you're not living here in Ohio. Keep in mind that OPERS will not withhold other state tax, okay, just Ohio. So in here, what I usually tell people is calculate a percentage of your overall gross benefit and go ahead and put that number in here. And that percentage can be anywhere from about 2 to 5%. So something to think about there. And on the next screen, you can see here your service credit as it relates to healthcare. Really important. So you may have 32 years of service credit that you're retiring with, but only 30 years is included in your healthcare subsidy. So again, not a problem in that example. It's just you want to know how many years you have that qualify towards your healthcare. That will then determine your subsidy through via benefits. Okay, so let's go ahead and decide whether or not we're going to enroll in dental and vision. So here is your dependent information. Do I need to enroll any of these people? You can check the box. Yes, let's go ahead and enroll my spouse, for instance. Okay, hit Save and Continue. And then when I do that, I now have to pick which plan that I want. Do I want the high option or the low option for me and that other person? Okay, so you can see you're going to select that here. No, I decline the coverage, or yes, I want the coverage. And then when you click yes, then you'll be able to select which dependents you also want to enroll beside yourself. So go ahead and hit Save and Continue, and we'll go on to dental. Same concept. Do you want high or low? And then who is getting that benefit? Keep in mind, if you get vision, doesn't mean you have to take dental, and vice versa. So these are totally one-off benefits that you can choose for yourself. You could choose high option on vision for yourself and a dependent, and then choose high option for yourself on dental, but not your dependent. So just keep that in mind. Go ahead and hit Save and Continue here. And when you do that, you can see your healthcare program subsidy. In this case, it says, hey, by the way, you're not eligible for the HRA. However, I'm assuming that most of you that are applying for retirement are eligible for healthcare with 20 plus years. If that's the case, you'll see your total vision, dental cost, what that would be, and then also your subsidy amount. So go ahead and hit Save and Continue. Okay, so when you click the I acknowledge button here, you're just simply saying, I recognize that once I become Medicare eligible, if I'm in the healthcare program, that I'm responsible for signing up for Medicare, and Medicare will be primary and OPERS will be your supplement. Okay, so just keep that in mind. And then you want to look at all their disclaimers. They're basically saying, hey, not all this is perfect. We're going to go ahead and contact your former employer. We're going to let them know you submitted an application. We're going to request your salary, your service credit for the year, and then they're also going to do an audit of your account to make sure everything looks kosher. And when they do that, then they'll finalize your benefit. Okay, so if we keep moving here, you're going to get a summary at the very end to take a look at before you hit the submit button. So in this case, what you can see here is you have a gross payment of about $135 in my example. Let's assume yours is somewhere around $3,000 to $5,000 is typically what we see. And then from there, you'll just see the taxes withheld. This is really important because when we fill out applications with clients, what we'll calculate is what their tax amount should be for federal and state. And if it doesn't match up, what we do is we just go back to that screen, go back to the tax screen, and then there's a column in that tax screen that says additional federal taxes. So we could just put a number in there to get that number to match up to where we would want it to be. Same thing on state, just go back, change the percentage, whatever dollar amount that needs to be, you can change it there. So then you can see your net benefit. Again, don't panic here because this net benefit may be different than the one that you've calculated when you were running your estimate. Take a look at your service credit. Make sure, especially if you're doing joint credit, that all of that looks correct. And then how much you have towards qualifying healthcare subsidy. Okay, so that's all pretty basic. We answered that in previous screens. Then you want to take a look at any of your personal data and just make sure it's all correct. So in this case, we can see here's my date of birth, my social security number, here's my address. Am I married? Am I reemployed? Do I plan on becoming reemployed? Any of those types of things here. Buy-in service credit, exactly what we went through, okay? Your first date that you're going to receive a pension payment from OPERS, and then who your beneficiaries are. Okay, so this is really important because we want to make sure the correct information is listed for our beneficiary. We also want to make sure that the person that we have listed as our plan of payment, that monthly income, may be different than the person that's going to receive the one-time lump sum benefit from OPERS. They can be different. A lot of times they're one and the same, but just keep in mind upon death as an OPERS member, your beneficiary that you have listed here will receive a one-time lump sum tax-free payment. It's a very small amount overall, but keep in mind it is available to members. And the real key here is making sure that plan selection is correct. Did you pick a joint survivor annuity? If you did, what percentage is that person going to get upon your death? Is that enough for them to maintain their lifestyle? Those are the things that you want to make sure are correct on this summary. Also, with the PLOP, you decided to take a PLOP. Great, what's the dollar amount? But more importantly, what you don't see on my screen that you will see if you decide to do this is make sure where you're sending that PLOP to, the name and account number is correct. That's really important. Keep in mind your PLOP comes about 90 days after your retirement date. Again, banking information, really important. Check and recheck that routing and account number to make sure your monthly deposit gets into your bank account. Okay, so in this case, do you wish to have federal tax withheld? Most people would say yes here. State income tax, yes, and then put your dollar amount. Okay, and then that would be populated just like we saw at the very beginning. So in that case, that really represents the majority of your pension payment. Now let's look at healthcare in your summary. So in this case, you could see who's enrolling. Well, I'm enrolling myself. Here's all my basic information. Am I enrolling any dependents? In my case, no, but let's assume yes. You would see their information the exact same way you see your information. When do you need that coverage to start? Well, I'm going to go ahead and start this the same day I retire, so August 1st. And if I selected vision and dental, in this case I said no, but if I did, it would tell me whether or not I had the high option or the low option. So again, really important to look at your summary. Make sure everything that you want in retirement you're going to get. Now, from a vision and dental standpoint, you'll see those dollar amounts for you and your primary beneficiary and what that total healthcare cost would be. Make sure that looks okay. And then you're going to continue to move down to the acknowledgement section here. And really the last thing you're doing here is you're going to click a box that says, I have read and acknowledged, and then it's going to date and time stamp it with your name right there, and then essentially you are done. So what happens next? Well, you can watch some of our videos on what happens next. I go through that, what you're going to get from OPERS. And the one thing that I would suggest is really keeping an eye on choosing that plan of payment correctly. So that would be my suggestion for you. The biggest takeaway is this: do not treat your OPERS retirement application like a simple piece of paperwork. The choice you make can affect your pension income, your taxes, your health insurance, your survivor benefits, and your overall retirement plan. So take this very seriously. For more information about OPERS and retirement resources, please visit our website at threecreekscapital.com. You can also book an intro call by following the link in the description. And if you find this helpful, please watch the next video where I cover the OPERS estimate overview and then also what you can expect after you submit this application. Thank you.